All right.
You're listening to UCW Radio. In your face.
If you try to remember, you will lose. Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water.
All the fighters that ever set foot on this planet, I'm the only world champion, United States national champion. I'm a two-time national kata champion. I was never beat in kata. Be proud of it.
The Action Martial Arts Power Hour.
All right, welcome to the Action Martial Arts Power Hour. We're here with Jeff Wagner and Alan Goldberg. They're hosting the show. How are you guys doing today?
Hey, not too bad. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah,
Great.
Jeff is with WOMA USA, and everyone knows who Alan Goldberg is. You guys have a special guest that's going to be coming on the show. You have Cary Tagawa of Mortal Kombat, Planet of the Apes, and I don't know, probably about another 15 million films. He's
104, actually.
104. Okay, so just let me know when you want Cary to come on. He's just waiting in the wings.
I just want to finish one thing. We had our first show, and we had a lot of response from it. Actually, believe it or not, the response we got was phenomenal response, all on the good side. We had one or two negative side ones, but usually those are the guys that always have gripes and always have problems with what they are anyway, so they always bring up facts what it is. I'll put it to you one last time. There is no such thing as a 12th degree black belt. There's no such thing as a doctor or a PhD in the martial arts. This is 100% provable. I ask anyone to prove me wrong, and if you come to me with a doctor's degree that says honorary, go try to get a job with it and see if we can go with it, because you cannot get a job with an honorary degree. It's like buying tires and you don't even own a car. There we go.
Okay.
Over and done with. Anyone has proof, please send it to me.
And done with. If they have any proof, go reach out to Alan Goldberg and deal with the issue and just provide your evidence. On that note, we're going to bring on Cary Tagawa. Cary, welcome to the show.
Hey, aloha, guys. Thanks for having me on today. Just want to start out before anything and just express my honor and respect for both Jeff and Alan. Certainly have known Alan for 8 years, 9 years.
Yeah, I had a little more hair at that time.
Yeah, me too. And I just met Jeff recently within the last year or so, but have as much respect for him in hearing about his background and substantiated background, should I say, through his lineage and his teachers. And just want to be supportive of anything that either of you do, for sure. And certainly we're starting to get involved a little bit more in business than I have ever been, and just very, very proud to be part of a group with you two gentlemen.
Thank you. We appreciate it also, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's our pleasure, too. Mine, at least.
If people, the name Cary Tagawa, martial artists all know the name, and if you see his picture, everyone will go, oh, Cary Tagawa, of course. And we're going to wind up changing that in the thing, because Cary just got onto a new show, which I think is so phenomenal. And Cary, you would tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was kind of a dubious entry. It wasn't typical of what I tend to do, is just kind of come in on my own merit and get a job. But this one was about someone leaving the show. And is a friend of mine. I work with him on the film 47 Ronin with Keanu Reeves, which was scheduled to come out this Christmas. They moved it till next Christmas. But some of you may recognize his name or not, Sanada Hiroyuki, and he's basically the Japanese Jackie Chan, massive action star. And he was on the show Revenge, which airs, the premiere episode is September 30th. So they were in a rush to try to keep him. He went on to Wolverine, which is like much kudos, hats off to him, and good luck in doing massive features. Going from Keanu Reeves to Wolverine is not bad at all.
Not too shabby.
very excited about and really cheering on more Asians, and especially Japanese, since I'm partial to Japanese, but to come into Hollywood and do the kind of jobs that I had earlier on, and being more natively Japanese, want to see more and more involvement by them in Hollywood. This show, though, Revenge, September 30th, very interesting story of a young woman who's set out on a path very much samurai-like or very Asian-oriented. Any kind of Asian action films are always based on revenge, and I play her teacher, her martial arts master kind of teacher. And so
you're a good guy in the show.
You know, you could say that, although helping someone seek someone's death, it can't be that great.
Yeah, half a good guy. Let's put it that way then.
Yeah, at least they're not chasing me. So, yeah, I have to accept that. It's definitely being better than other characters that I've played, for sure. So
well, you do have a couple of roles coming up here where you are the good guy, which is not the typical role people are used to seeing you in most of your movies.
No, absolutely.
Or most of the popular movies that have the broader appeal.
Right. The 47 Ronin with Keanu Reeves is basically a kind of a cameo role. I play the shogun who makes decisions at critical times throughout the film, based on a true story, of course. Many of you will know Chushin-gura, or the story of 47 Ronin, who were seeking revenge, so I can't seem to get away from this revenge thing. But certainly not the guy being chased again, but the guy who makes the decisions and gives orders. So that's one. And another one, which fewer fans may have heard about so far, is a film called Little Boy, in which I play a little bit older than myself, 70 years old. Not that much ahead, but 7-year-old man coming out of the Japanese internment camps after during World War II. He came out in 1943, and befriend a 7-year-old boy. It's a coming-of-age story for both of them, and very excited. It's the most dramatic and most leading role I've played so far. So,
great
about.
Well, I followed your career, especially when we became friends. I always watch what you do. I remember sitting there watching TV in the middle of the night and say, well, there's Cary, So, you definitely are probably one of the most noticed actors out there for the roles you play. And, Mortal Kombat was something that just put the mark for you. And everything kind of really took off from there in the martial art world, basically. Everyone remembers that movie. So, I get to say that I'm proud that you've been involved with me all these years. And it's a funny thing that within our group, and Cary, you know what I'm talking about. We have our little group for my event. We have about 20, 30 different celebrities. And right now, a lot of things happening for all the different celebrities at the event. Chuck Zito's on Sons of Anarchy right now. Michael J. White's doing a show down in Georgia. So everyone's got a little something coming up, and it makes me proud that, you guys are friends of mine, too. So, we're behind you 100%, Cary. We're going to push that and make sure people watch the show also.
No, I appreciate that, Alan. And I just have to say, for those of you that don't know Alan Goldberg and may have just heard about him because of the event, to know him, and the reason why I support his event so much is because, first of all, his love and care for those people who come to the event, to honor martial arts the way that he does by being the most notable event and most notable personality that he's drawn people to him. It's because of his giving and his caring, which really make me proud to be associated with him. His credentials and his length of time in the arts, the people he's studied with. There's no way that you could last this long in New York City and be nothing but real. So totally hats off, especially to New York martial artists, not to mention everybody else on the planet. But my time that I spent on the East Coast this last January to about June really gave me a great appreciation for what the East Coast, in its history, has done, and also in carrying on the tradition of hardcore, old school traditions. I used to love him.
Yeah. Well, not everyone says that, but anyway, I appreciate the people that do. I do appreciate. Let's put it that way. I recently been called one of the old god, and Jeff and I were talking. I said, God, what's wrong with that? I love being called the old god because the new god, I have a lot of problems with what's going on out there.
Yep, absolutely, man. And Jeff, you're certainly from that school too, the old school. And to me, there's no school but the old school. Everything else is kind of a substitute wannabe energy.
Yeah, I got lucky there. When my teacher moved here at age 72, I was a 20-year-old kid, so I was kind of feel like I may be one of that last generation that really got the old school, traditional values, training, beatings, and everything that went with it.
Yeah,
and the way things were then, they'll then never be that way again. And it could be good, it could be bad, whatever. But when I was called old god, old school, I laughed at it and I took it as a whole compliment. And when someone said that to me in a bad way, I just said, well, then I have to realize where they came from, because there were these type of people that study 1 year with somebody and a year here and 6 months here or 5 months here with someone, and literally think that makes them a master of the martial arts. The longevity of doing one thing is what makes you a master. Not just going to 15 different instructors, picking up a little here and there. That's all right, but it's not making you a master.
Yeah, exactly. And just to hear Bruce's words at the beginning of the show was very, very heartwarming, to say the least. Of course, just like so many people, being inspired by him. Certainly, I was very inspired by simply him being an Asian male with the spirit power that he brought. And when I was in college, it just made me proud to be Asian. We have to remember too that he also created his own form out of an old school, and so there are plenty of things to be honored about bringing the two together. And he certainly was the beginning of that. And he gave up his life for that belief that it should be constantly growing and including more. And I think from his inspiration, a lot of new schools have cropped up, and not to say new schools aren't, valid. Just to say, keep it real, guys.
Keep it real, yeah.
That's what we try to do every day.
Cary, you want to take some calls? You want to get some questions from people?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Will, you got any calls online there?
Yeah, we have. But we're going to bring on Glenn Perry in a second. But, Cary, I want to ask you a question. You've been involved in Hollywood since the early 80s, I believe. And when you stepped into the arena and you threw your hat in there, did you find it very difficult, I guess, treading a new path in not only television but also film?
Well, I could say, it's true for any actor, period, that this is not something you choose because it's an easy path. It's probably the lowest percentage success rate of any employment. One thing was clear for me, though, it didn't matter. I knew what the difficulty was going in, and I'm just not a whimpering, whining kind of guy. So I knew that whatever I was given, I was going to make the most of it and bring something different to it and show a strength within Asian males, albeit bad guys, that hadn't been seen before. And that's all I knew and was committed to, and the rest I knew would be up to fate and the heavens. So.
Well, you definitely got to look, Cary. There's no doubt when every time someone sees you on the air, they know it's Cary Tagawa. And that's the amazing thing to me, that longevity of just being around, whether you had long hair or short hair, everyone knows it's you.
Or no hair.
You know what? In talking with Cary, outside of the shows here and stuff, we talk probably as much as you and he do, Alan, and as much as you and I do. And it's really interesting when you mention his name to people, because name recognition isn't quite where the face recognition is with Cary. But boy, you mentioned you send someone to IMDb, they look him up, oh, that guy, and everybody has a different memory of what movie impacted them most with him and how they remember him. Like in my case, it was when he was, believe it or not, it was when he was in American Me, and he stabbed the guy on the weight bench. And when you find out, when I tease him sometimes, when I first started talking to him, I was kind of teasing him about being able to play a Mexican as well. He gave me a little backstory behind that character, and some of those characters he's played would be really good movies in and of themselves, even though they were smaller parts of those larger movies. So it's kind of interesting that each person has such a different, oh, that guy, yeah, I saw him in this, Crazy Eddie, or, whatever, any number of names that they have seen him play.
Cary had a role years ago. It's got to be, probably about 8 to 10 years ago, that he was playing a cop in a TV show. What show was that, Cary?
Played the detective. The TV show would be Hawaii.
Hawaii was called
NBC, yeah, and then there was Nash Bridges back in late 90s, yeah, with Don Johnson.
Yeah, that was cool. That was a good show. And then recently you were on Hawaii Five-0, the remake, and that was a good little role that you had there for a while too.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah, that was good recognition.
Well, Cary, let me ask you, how difficult is it to jump from television to film? Because you have, even though it's all Hollywood, but you have two different, I guess two different forms of acting, from TV to the big screen.
Yeah, the biggest difference is you have less time in television to get it right.
There you go.
So I was very fortunate to do a lot of television when I first started. I started in '86, and it just seemed to be the right time to be an Asian bad guy, because every show had to have an episode where Asians were doing bad things. And the critical thing for me was, and like Alan, you were saying, people remember the face. The worst thing that could happen for an actor is to be in a film and for somebody to say, oh, I don't remember you, So I made sure that whatever evil or bad or scaring kind of energy that I could play, that at least it would be something that people will remember I was in the piece.
It was only a job, right?
Right?
It was only a job, so that's what you were doing.
Yeah, and it was only an ends to a means. The thing that's kept me going, and this is both in television and film, that my greatest intention has been to change the perception of Asian men as wimps. That makes me so bad. That's why Bruce Lee inspired me so much when he came on the scene, that you had a one-man army, an army of one. And he was doing it with his hands and feet, just like every other guy who was studying martial arts. But the energy that he portrayed and that he had, obviously not just portrayed, but in the characters that he played, it made me so proud to be Asian and proud to be part of an industry where there was so much room for change. So, yeah, and then to do the films, the difference is, too, that the quality of people that you work with, there was definitely a TV quality actor when I started. And then there was film quality actors. And not to be too heavily judgmental, but I think it took a little less to be a TV actor at that time. And it took a bit more to be a feature actor. And luckily I was able to do both. An A-list film every 2 years. It's like it was clockwork. It's like
I had the honor to do a film with you, if you remember, years ago. The Belitsky Boys in Brooklyn.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'm not an actor at all. I mean, they throw me, I look like a piece of bacon on screen. But I went off and I got involved with these people. I did my little role. I played the announcer of the fights. I got to hang out with all the women and everything, so it was cool. And I just sat there and watched Cary, and David Carradine was in the movie, Gary Busey, some real decent, actors. And I just sat back and watched. It's a lot different watching these guys prepare than you would actually think. And like Cary kind of zoned out, and when he hit the screen, boy, he was like a completely different person. So it's interesting to see. I have to admit that. I mean, again, I don't know if I would do it for a living, but it was fun. It was a good day.
Well, the difficult thing is doing something over and over, but in fact, just the basic craft of acting, that you make something unnatural, which is to be in front of 50 people and cameras and lights, make it look natural. And you got to have a certain kind of focus, and certainly that's where the martial arts came into play with my career. It's just absolutely, for martial artists that want to be actors, definitely that part of the craft can work really well. The part that works against you is that as martial artists, say we, and I'm certainly not one to be a typical martial artist. I'm more on the healing side, but in that aspect of being so much in control, in acting, it's absolutely opposite to what you want to do. You got to be vulnerable. You got to be willing to kind of show different parts of yourself that you normally just don't walk around in a vulnerable situation. Everything is about being invulnerable and totally being in control. So that was one of the biggest things that was a challenge in the beginning, for sure.
Well, Don Wilson had told me the same exact thing you're saying, and Don, of course, was a world champion fighter, and we hung out this weekend together. We were away, and Don said it to me a couple of years ago. He goes, "I wasn't in control. I got to sit there and just listen to everyone else and do what I have to do." So you're saying it too. It must be something that's just in every martial art actor's mind, Well, let's bring Glenn online. And let's see if Glenn has any questions or some comments.
Okay, we're bringing on Glenn Perry. Glenn, welcome to the show.
Hey, Thank you very much. Just wanted to say hello to everyone. My name is Glenn Perry, and I'm just really glad to listen to your show, Alan. And Sifu Cary Tagawa. It's an honor to finally to hear your voice and not just look at your pictures. And how you doing, Jeff?
All right.
I did want to ask Sifu Tagawa a question, but if you don't mind, I'd like to say also that in the opening, Alan Goldberg did say that there's no such thing as a 12th dan in the martial arts. And I wanted to just reiterate that. We've had this conversation before, and I wanted to reiterate that I do believe that there's no such thing as a 12th dan in today's martial arts, and that it probably came to birth in its use of senseis like Gichin Funakoshi and Jigoro Kano, who were professors and educators in the public school systems in Japan. And it was prior misinterpretation or mistranslation that was brought over to the United States when the arts were being introduced to the United States in particular. But I do wanted to repeat that I am totally agreeing.
I appreciate that. And it's unfortunate a lot of guys just take it to, and I put something up on Facebook. I says usually a title is something that you put out for people to see your ego, and titles mean nothing. It's what you do on the floor. It's the craft that you put on the floor.
Yeah, and today I think what is happening is there are several individuals who believe that they're without peer, and because the martial arts has been around, actually as long as it has been around, including in the United States, there are more 8th dans, 9th dans, and 10th dans, but the ego is getting in the way of a few individuals who want to show that they're without peers. They're the only ones. They're not satisfied with being the only ones in the room. They want to be the only ones in the universe, and it's just disrespectful. Just want to just say that.
Yeah, if you read Bonfire, the vanities, the BSDs in the house, they got to be bigger than the guys that's teaching down the road kind of thing. So,
well, guys, just throw this on. Having the magazine, I carry a very big stick because of it. Otherwise, I'm just Alan Goldberg. But the real truth of the matter is that we don't put people in check with the egos. And literally, there are guys selling PhDs and titles to people, and people literally think it's real. And sometimes it's not their fault. they really think what they're doing is legitimate. And when their peers, and I'm talking about, as I can give you a number, 99% of the people look at these people and laugh at them literally. I mean, Cary, I was with Don Wilson and Dan Severn this weekend, and we were joking about it, laughing. And I said, yeah, well, Cary got a degree from this organization. Don got one. And I said, these guys do it because it's a respect factor. They're not accepting a doctor's degree or anything else given to them. And Don goes, Alan, you know how I feel about it. And Dan looked at me and laughed. He goes, what are they, nuts? So the real truth of the matter is we all try to be polite, but me and these other gentlemen that's on the phone here tonight, we'll admit that it's time we just have to put these people in check because it's really ruining what we're doing as martial artists. So,
Agreed.
And the fact that some of these degrees can cost $3,000 or more for this honorary degree explains some of the vehemence that you and I've met with over the last couple of weeks, Alan, where, people will just defend to their dying breath their right to use it. I'd be pissed off, too, if I spent $3,000 and then I got somebody else, including the Department of Education, telling me my degree is not worth anything. I think any person would fight for that.
Yeah.
For the right
like I said, go get a job with it. Go get a job with it. See where you're going to go with it. So, Glenn, what else did you have to say? Do you have any questions for Cary?
Yes, I did. If he could give us a little bit more detail in how the healing arts are so important in the ability to cause harm, to cause death, and to create injury. That's the part of the misconception is that the warrior must know how to heal him or herself, or they wouldn't last very long. And if he could expand on that a little bit more. And again, I wanted to say hello to you, Tagawa. I'm a fan of yours.
I appreciate that, and it's a good question. This happened to me early in my experience in martial arts. I started kendo when I was 11, and actually didn't start karate until I was 21 at the University of Southern California, and then went directly to Tokyo on a foreign exchange program and studied directly with Soke Nakayama and his immediate teachers under him. And that's really where I got the full dose of not only old school, but at that moment, little did I know until actually I met someone last year who came from JKA, who was there at that time. And it was a big turning point in the history of JKA, of going global and sending teachers out to Israel and work with Special Forces and LAPD. So I got to witness a lot of interesting transition at that time. There were two of us that were being moved up rather quickly as white belts, and I got the sense it was definitely special attention, but nothing except for young guys who they thought were promising and that they wanted to move up and certainly move into that position to go out and teach. And I accepted it as an honor to be able to do that. The one thing that held me back, because I was rebellious, sort of Americanized Japanese, was I knew very clearly from being born and raised in Japan, left when I was 5, that from a Japanese mother who was always majorly driving home the message of to be proud to be Japanese and always uphold those principles. But having been raised in America, there was a certain rebelliousness that was not appreciated in Japanese society. So when I was in Japanese society, certainly I was very, very obedient, understood the rules, and understood very clearly that if I was to accept this honor of being taught by Soke and the masters, that I would owe them my life and to follow through and to teach the system. And I was very clear at that age, 21, 22, that I had a few more things I wanted to do in my life than just teach martial arts. I totally have the highest respect for those who live the martial part of martial arts, to study the fighting, to know offense, defense, and I've always been rebellious in this sense. I've always looked to develop new ways to do different things. After growing up in Louisiana, Texas, and North Carolina in 1956, through my elementary years, I knew what it was to be different, to say the least. And one thing that I made a choice at 6 years old was, do I fight this thing or do I take it laying down? And obviously, I made the choice to fight. But I was real clear that if I was to fight, that I would be fighting all the time. I just knew that, and especially with the kind of anger that I had, and I mean, I stood the chance of getting hurt, but that didn't bother me so much as I wanted to do other things besides just be one-dimensional. At 6 years old, I figured all this out in 6 seconds. But the idea was, how can I win without fighting? So Bruce said the art of fighting without fighting. It was still fighting, though. So what really I started, which is one of the mottos of the style that I've developed, is the art of winning without fighting. So when being the only Japanese, we might have been the only Japanese family in the South, period, in 1955. And in the U.S. Army, no less. My father was a lifer. That I figured, all right, we're not going to take this laying down. In school, what I did was I moved to the front of the class. I thought, enough of every time the teacher turns her back, everybody turns around and throws stuff or starts, making all these gestures. I thought, enough of that. So I moved to the first seat so that I didn't have to look at their faces. And all I saw was the board and the teacher. And then I realized, and being Japanese, this is all American kind of stuff was new to me. So I recognized that in first grade, everybody's a little embarrassed to have the wrong answer, so no one volunteered. I learned to be the best volunteer in the class. I didn't kiss ass, but I didn't really go that way. What I did was I just figured out a way to know the answer, or to figure out the answer, or to be the volunteer. And pretty soon everyone had to recognize that guy may not know all the answers, but it takes a lot of guts to just volunteer. And I volunteered for the school play. I just did a lot of stuff that I recognized that other kids were embarrassed about. And so being the first, being outspoken, as you can tell, I could run on for days like this. But the bottom line is bringing to the martial arts today another perspective, a new system I've been developing for 34 years. I'll counterbalance in and especially in Jeet Kune Do and Wing Chun kind of energy. Basically, we're looking at yin and yang as the core of all martial arts. Hard style is balanced with soft style. Defense is balanced with offense with defense. So always looking at the dual nature of any style based on the dual nature of what Asians, in this particular case, believe the nature of the universe, that there never is one way. And I think that's one of the biggest drawbacks to the energy in the U.S. Once it became more of a business and everybody had to say theirs was the only way. Not that didn't happen in Asia, and there were a lot of fights, Jeff, that you can attest to, just by saying, our style is better than yours. I didn't want to get into that sort of thing by representing a school and ending up fighting all the time. And that I learned very quickly. I could achieve my success without that kind of mentality at 6 years old. So grew up that way, went through being only Asian in the high school and became student body president. It didn't matter what the odds were. It was just that I was going to be proud and I was going to be clear. So with this healing thing, just another step in that long journey, it's my contention that at this moment it's very critical for us true martial artists, and certainly martial business. Some of the tournament, I have to say, and please, take offense if you feel it, but this is no offense intended, but I swear that some of the tournaments because I had missed that whole experience growing up. It seemed so much like circuit energy and the WWF kind of energy. And people yelling, cheering for someone to knock somebody. It just was not what I remembered in my martial arts experience.
You're right.
That was the reason why I left. Because when I left, I knew that if they were pumping me up to go out and just bang and get trophies, that was the direction I was going to head. But little did I know or could ever imagine that a lot of tournaments are like that today. So
it all comes to money, and that's a big problem. It's how many people you bring through the front door. So it kind of just loses what you're talking about, what it was years ago.
So what I'm looking to do, Glenn, with this healing system, is to bring at the core of what I believe is a big part that's missing today in martial arts, is that then the focus, the ability to, rather than just constantly be in contact and studying fighting, is develop a place within martial artists that comes from peace and calm and conflict resolution without conflict. And this is what the breathing system is about. How's that for answer, Glenn?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. What did you say, Alan?
No. How's that for a short answer, Glenn?
Okay.
That's wonderful. That was a nice short answer. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Okay, Glenn, I'm sticking around. I'll be here to the end of the show. Thank you for letting me in.
Thank you, Glenn. We appreciate you calling in.
Thanks, Glenn.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And Cary, beyond the world of martial arts and beyond Hollywood, what else do you have going on in your world that your fans would be very much so interested in hearing about?
Well, hopefully this system that Glenn has brought up is called Chushin-Do. And it's something that I began pursuing. It wasn't anything that I was taught. It was just a few things that I learned. One from Pilates, which is popular today. This is back in 1978, before Pilates was popular. I did a Pilates workout. They emphasized breathing. Certainly we had emphasis at certain times in karate class about the breathing, but I just had a sense that it was more important, and that's when I began this journey to find more information on breathing. At that time, there was very little information. Sports science was just beginning, and they had some information that I checked into. Some sort of new age, different things, rebirthing was one that I checked into. But that has been my main goal since 1978, is to keep developing this system. So I'm probably the only healer that has ever gone into Hollywood. I mean, why would you if you were into healing? But I kind of had the realization that if I was to reach any kind of notoriety, that I would bring the attention back to this particular system. So that's what I am in the process of doing right now, is gathering the tools and platforms necessary to become use the internet, and especially apps. Jeff and I are working on that in particular, and Glenn, certainly we're enlisting your help of WOMA, and just for a second.
It'd be my pleasure to assist in any way that I can.
I appreciate that, man. That's what WOMA is an organization, a World Organization of Martial Arts. And the reason why I chose it certainly was Jeff. And the thing about Jeff that I admire and honor the most, just like with Alan, from being from old school and having paid his dues over this long period and refusing to just sell out, it's everything that I've created a relationship with him in working some business-oriented kind of things, and I've asked him to manage some other things.
But you got to admit the title. You got to admit the title, Dr. Goldberg, sounds pretty good, though, doesn't it?
Weren't you going to be Super Doctor, Super Duper Doctor?
Hey, I got 5 more classes and a thesis, and I can have MA after my name at least.
There you go.
And another 45,000 in tuition.
On that note, we're going to take a 30-second break because we have to run something for Mr. Alan Goldberg, and we're going to bring Tim White. He's on hold. We're going to bring him on in about 30 seconds.
The Ultimate Martial Art Experience, Action Martial Arts Magazine Hall of Fame, January 25th and 26th this year. Don't miss it. Bigger and better than ever. More stars, more people, bigger rooms. We're expanding everything. Friday night parties, seminars, so be there. You need to call me, 718-856-8070, and I'll tell you more.
All right, let's welcome Tim White to the show.
Hi, Jeff.
How are
Good
you,
evening.
Tim? Good
I'm
evening.
doing
How are you,
fine.
Tim?
Good evening. Hi, Jeff. I'm sorry, Jeff?
Pardon? No, yeah, I just said hello.
Oh, Cary?
Yes.
I have a question for you about your breathing system. How do you compare that to, like, Qigong or maybe the Tai Chi breathing systems that are already out there on the market?
Well, the biggest difference is they know more about breathing than I do. in this sense, they're ancient systems, and totally the highest honor and respect to those systems. This system is only 34 years old, and it's all been on my personal discovery journey. There's still so much more of the knowledge that they have that I can only hope to aspire, be inspired by, to aspire to a greater level of the understanding. Mine is a system that has looked for simplification. And I think some of when ancient knowledge is passed, simply for the fact that it is ancient, it can get lost in translation, for lack of a better phrase. As we found simply in the martial arts period, that from its inception to being passed down to its modern day, there's a lot of time in between for things to get lost, for any number of teachers calling themselves, like we're talking about here, whoever they are. But mine is a very simple system. It looks at bringing martial arts principles in terms of the stances. In fact, I want to explain one part of it very thoroughly, but it's taking martial arts principles and increasing the oxygenation of the system, ultimately through postures that we develop in martial arts, and simply for the healing of the body. Now, the number one healing principle in Chinese medicine is circulation, with the belief that if our body's in maximum circulation, that the body has every tool necessary to remain in good health. And
I agree with that.
That's pretty simple to explain, that if you have 50 to 70 trillion cells in your body and everyone needs oxygen and every breath needs an exhale in order to expel the toxin, then breathing is something not only very ancient, but also is possibly one of the most new, innovative ways that exception look at how we can take care of ourselves.
Well, that's great stuff.
With the one position that we were never told what the purpose of horse stance was. We all thought it was just a punishment to make our legs, and every martial.
You mean it wasn't?
Yeah.
Was it? That's what I was going to say. Was it? I remember sitting in a horse stance and having a bamboo rod across my legs for a while.
I do.
So the one thing that what I found, I was very fortunate because I was not one for pain and punishment. That I learned enough growing up in the South. But I found the position that our sensei was trying to get us to achieve. And the way he would make sure that we got it is while we were in horse stance, he would come up behind us, step up onto one calf and then the other, and push himself onto your body so that you were now holding up not only your legs that were hurting, but it was also his body weight, would take his hands and then push himself up. If you were in perfect stance, you would definitely fall over. And then he would just make you stay longer. But the one thing that I figured out, and this is one thing about, again, growing up in the South, that you have to think quick. What I realized was that if, in fact, you were in line with gravity, I mean, there's certainly a limit. You wouldn't want a Sherman tank, on your back. But there was a point at which, if you found the right gravity line, that you could also hold up his weight. So I found it early, and I kind of was excused from going on and on. But with that horse stance, the one thing that I have come to realize, and it's the basis of the healing system, that if in the proper position, our ligament system and our tendon system was open, that would make it easier than just trying to get a muscular structure to hold that weight. So everything the other things we did, of course, in class were to open up the joints and the tendons. And thereby, there's few principles that I'm absolutely clear about that martial arts is so superior to most physical knowledge on the planet. Number one, of course, is the breathing. Number two is that ligaments and tendons are much more critical than muscle mass and power. That if you have speed so if you have speed and quickness, it doesn't matter how powerful the other guy is. So if he's pumped and he throws a punch, that punch does not work effectively until it touches you. So if, in fact, through your speed and quickness, you weren't there when he thought you were going to be there to punch him, then you certainly had a way to escape it. And then again, through the ligament and tendon alignment, that we could deliver more force by leverage rather than muscle power. So, and also very clear that martial arts has the most comprehensive understanding of the body. By studying animal forms, we looked at the body that we have almost a duplication of animal bodies. But we're an animal that stood up from 4 points to 2 points. Mm-hmm. By using that, think about it, we lost 50% of our balance just by standing up. They say the average person only uses 15% of our lung capacity. So we lost more than 50%. We lost another 35% on top of that just by standing up. And then life, in accordance with the concept of the AMA is you're born, you stand up, as you get older, you kind of slump over, closes down your system, and then you die. Where we know in martial arts, judging from the masters, that age does not stop your chi flow. And they tend to be a lot more erect and more vital and can deliver that force and power without muscle mass. So when you talk about chi, when you talk about the understanding of the body that the martial arts does understand, and now to bring back into the fold perhaps some ancient knowledge, but not from an ancient form, I'm real clear that breathing will work in different directions. One is peak performance in any sports. I think our regular Western athletic training has got it kind of backwards. Imagine if in martial arts the first thing we learn to do is take the proper stance for balance. Then we look at how to fall safely. That might not be a bad way for football to start playing. And instead, the first thing we do in Western sports is pump and run. So this idea, the falling safely idea, coming from an animal understanding of the body is just at start. And I think what we've done is overemphasize the banging part of it, the competition part of it. But inherent in martial arts as tools, a vehicle, the way of life, there was already inherent knowledge of how to live a much, might I say, free body. I mean, how much pain are all martial arts martial artists are in from the banging and not fully understanding the principles of which the arts are founded.
Well, you know, on that note, gentlemen, we have about 10 minutes left on the show. We have a couple other callers to bring on that want to speak to Cary, if you don't mind. All right. So we have Alan. We have a special treat for you. We have your number 2, Brian Siegel, coming on the show. Welcome, Brian.
Hey, how's it going?
That's my number 1 student down in Florida there.
How's it going, Sifu?
Good. What do you have to say, Brian?
Hey, you know, I was listening to the conversation, and it's interesting what he was talking about in regards to structure of the body and breathing and so forth. And it is something that American Medical Association really has discarded. You know, speaking about that, you know, I'm kind of injured on my body, too, as he was talking about banging the body sometimes and hurting yourself. And it's just amazing that once you truly start to think of yourself as a post-lintel system or a structural being that has actually, that should be in a straight vertical position, and you start to actually keep your body in that anatomical structure, everything increases. Your energy, your vigor, your chi flow definitely increases because you're not compressing your body into a tight band anymore. I got to totally agree with everything he's talking about. He's right on the mark, in my opinion.
Something I have to add in now, it's very, people realize what I'm saying here, is that with all the electrical systems that come in, all the people making their own styles up, they've kind of left all the real roots and the essence of what that is, and the breathing is the important thing. You know, the Kung Fu systems, most of them have a breathing system. Even some of the traditional Japanese have the Sanchin and the breathing. And now a lot of these guys today, they learn a couple of punches and kicks, and they leave out all the important stuff they need to heal themselves with.
Well, it's amazing how quickly everybody wants to learn how to fight, but they don't look for the long duration about learning how to survive the duration of your life and being able to be applicable in what you're doing in your martial art.
Well, see, this is way when we, from the old school, really understood that martial arts is a way of life. And from the Samurai Bushido Code, it's really a way of death. I mean, their whole lives were based on dying with honor. So what I'm looking at is bringing a balance to that to say life is absolutely critical here. The one thing that I found, if I was a samurai and I was told to make harakiri on the spot just to prove the loyalty to a lord, that I would think twice about leaving the welfare of my family in the hands of somebody like that, leaving in the hands of corrupt warlords and politicians and businessmen. Excuse me for politicians and businessmen, but they don't have any excuse. The bottom line is, why would I leave the planet, leave the welfare of my family in the hands of men like that? And so there's sometimes a code overrides life, and certainly the samurai code was to die with honor. And honor is important. Its question in my mind always is at what cost? And honor is a good thing, but do we have to die for it? Do we have to be put in situations to create that? One thing I wanted to ask you, Brian, just real quick, and I know we have a little. What is the problem that you're having, physical?
Well, I'm actually a police officer also for 11 years, and some of the issues that we have on top of the martial arts, you know, that I've done some damage to myself over years of playing, you know, football and tough sports and stuff as a kid, is I actually have 2 herniated discs, which is my L4 and my S1. And so that causes some issues, especially when I'm wearing, you know, 40 pounds of gear on my body.
Right.
Seated in the vehicle, on and off, of course, up and down through the course of my shift. But I'm in my car 12-hour shifts. So, which, as you mentioned, even in your conversation, staying seated is not a good position for us as human beings. We were meant to be nomadic, not to be stationary. And it's damaging.
Well,
it's real damaging.
Are you wearing boots when you work? Or
these days I don't any longer. These days I'm actually wearing like a walking shoe or a walking sneaker, so to speak.
Okay, all right. That is a lot the case. Here's one thing I want to throw up, Alan, too, that actually Jeff and I are involved in. We're working on an application, and an app to start bringing some of these principles of breathing out, and also bring martial arts knowledge that martial artists don't know typically, and combining this for athletes, so martial artist athlete kind of idea. What I would suggest to you, Brian, if you can, through Alan, get a hold of me, one of the tricks that I've developed is how to retie your shoes so it actually takes pressure off your back.
Interesting.
It's a very simple idea. It's slightly radical, but in martial arts, the principle of having stood up, lost that balance. Think about this. I've never heard this. The weight of your body, the mass of your body above your ankle, and how that mass moves depends on how you're standing on your feet. So when you're flat-footed and you're doing martial arts, it's actually the best thing. Flat feet are actually great. If your feet are flat, help this way. Tagawa has a way to retie shoes that will help that. But bottom line is, get a hold of me through Alan, and then I can send that to you. I can talk you through it.
I got a real
great.
problem, okay? I only wear boots, though.
All right, guys, we have one last caller. We have Cady on the phone, so I'm going to bring her on for you, Cary.
Sure.
Thank you. Cady, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so good to hear your voice and Alan's voice. And, as the First Lady of MMA Yoga, I just want to say that from 45-plus years of yoga teaching and extensive training before that, you're absolutely right with regard to Western medical science. And I also have a therapeutic background, so everything you've said is absolutely clear. And you're right. We have this inherent knowledge that we just don't tap into in terms of body movement. So I'll leave that to you, and just to come on the show real quick and tell Alan, I'm behind you 100%. I know the other show, and I couldn't be on the other show, and I promised I'd be here. So I stand behind you.
We know you're not a doctor. Let's just put it that way.
I'm sorry, dear.
Can I answer one last thing?
We know you're not a doctor.
Hey, Sipo, can I answer, and Lou, can I mention one last thing?
Sure.
Yeah, there's one last thing, too. It's funny in Western science, everything needs to be proven through scientific discovery, where we sometimes know implicitly that there are certain things that are just not right for us. And sometimes I don't think we need to be hit over the head with a scientific fact to prove something when we know inherently, and it's been proven through, centuries of using certain things, that this is the right thing for us. You can feel that in your bones. And we don't have to wait for scientific fact to hit us over the head specifically. For example, acupuncture is only starting to gain scientific fact in the United States, but it's been around for thousands of years.
And I believe in it 100%.
Yeah, so do I.
I've had it done for myself.
So do I.
Last thing, Brian, for your back in the car, take a towel and roll it up like a bedroll. So you kind of, there's different ways to roll it into the section, fold it into the sections, and then you roll it up. But the idea is get into a roll, tape it, and then when you're in the car, put it in your back, in the lower back or the upper back. The whole thing is once you sink to the seat, it rounds your shoulders, and you start creating muscles you don't even recognize, the tension in neck and shoulders. You got enough pressure as a policeman to know that.
Absolutely.
But if you use this roll, it will certainly help open up your lung capacity. You could see that with your sort of sitting and leaning back. Your shoulders are open, create more room for you to breathe without really, breathing. And if you remember, certainly breathe deep while you're driving around. And
Cary, I'm going to be rude only because the show's going to be ending in 20 seconds. I want to thank you for coming on the show, Alan, Jeff, Brian, Glenn. Thank you guys for joining the conversation with Cary Tagawa, probably one of the hardest working men in Hollywood. You have 5 movies coming out, Cary. 5 movies. That's big. And I thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right, Cary, thanks. I appreciate
Initiating
it.
shutdown sequence.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Cary.
UCW Radio in your face.
Thanks for
What is your major malfunction?
So let it be written. So let it be done.
Ladies and gentlemen, my mother thanks you, my father thanks you, my sister thanks you, and I thank you.